Hello and welcome to This Woman's Work, a space where you can hear and read about some amazing women, the fantastic jobs they do and the paths that have led them to where they are today. I am here today with Natasha. Hi Natasha.
Hello.
Could you tell the listener what it is you do for a living?
I can. I'm the MD of the Rose Group, which is a group of companies that incorporates a builders merchants, primarily aggregate company and a skip and recycling company.
So how long have you been the MD for then?
So I've been in the business for about 20 years, but MD for about 10.
Okay. Right, well before, because this is always where I start waffling in different directions. Let's go all the way back first to Natasha at school, college. What were you like? What were you into?
Trouble, mainly.
You were into trouble?
Into trouble. I have always had a massive problem with authority, massive problem with rules, don't like being told what to do, which I suppose it would have been helpful if someone had taken 8-year-old Natasha to one side and said, look, your trajectory is that you need to be your own boss.
Yeah.
Because until you're your own boss, you're never going to be happy, until you're making the rules instead of pushing against somebody else's. And so I wish somebody had said that, but they don't say that to naughty kids, which is what they should say to naughty kids. What they actually just say is, here's a box, we need you to get in it, and then we're going to put the lid on, which is the worst thing you can say, because the more that they tried to contain me, you know, the more I would push against it.
Yeah.
Luckily, in some ways, because it was quite a strict school, the containment was small enough so that even when I pushed against it, I wasn't doing outrageously naughty things. It's quite good in a way that I was in North Norfolk, so there wasn't a huge amount of trouble to find a lot of the time. So I was in quite an idyllic setting and in this sort of very strict school. So it was.
You pushed what you could.
I pushed what I could, I guess. But it was a good education, had a really good education, despite my best efforts not to have one. And went to uni to study theatre. At drama school, the teachers were incredibly condescending. I suppose maybe they were trying to prepare you for the reality of what was out there. But there was me thinking that I wouldn't be put in a box. And actually casting is all about putting you in a box. Jewish princess, boom. That's all you are. That's all you'll ever be. Oh, and you'll always be, in TV casting, you'll always be the victim because you've got big brown eyes. So you'll always be the wife that's left.
Right.
You know, you'll always get the sad ending. Like this is, and I thought, oh, so here's me thinking I was breaking out, and actually all I've done is contain myself even
in a different
further.
way. Well, in a different way.
Yeah, and it was when you walk into a room for an audition and you look around you, and there's 30 other people that look exactly like you. You'd walk in and you'd think, oh, I'm not special, am I? You know, there's nothing that really sets me apart from... I found it really, really tough going. And the cherry on the cake was a relationship that had gone horribly, horribly wrong. And my heart was broken. And that was probably the last bit of resistance I had. So it was very much retreat home from London. My plan was really to wear pyjamas for at least 6 months and feel sorry for myself.
Which is fair enough.
Well, I thought it was fair enough. My dad said that you either go to work or I have you committed, which was
his way.
It was his helpful advice to me at the time. I'm still not sure whether I'm grateful or angry about that.
Yeah.
So, but it was bizarre because I had a university degree, but in theatre, and I was back up in Peterborough where there wasn't an awful lot of professional theatre to get involved in, and I was kind of angry a little bit, I guess, at that world, and I wanted to come away from it, but really, what else was I good for? And I think I thought,
so your confidence is just very low.
It's on the floor at this stage. And I thought, well, do you know what I'll do? I've got a reasonable set of academic results here. Teaching seems to be the probably a sensible way to go. But obviously the intake is annual, and I, as Dad said, I had to get a job, and I went and worked. Good grief! I can't quite believe I did this, but I went and worked on the trade counter at the Builders Merchants in Peterborough.
Oh, okay.
And it was the most bizarre experience of my life. First of all, I'd done odd jobs in London, obviously to support my acting. So I was quite used to the fact that most jobs involved a computer.
Yes.
It was 2003.
Yeah.
So we're into the noughties. And I walked in this place, there was not a computer in sight, which blew my mind, first of all. And then somebody would come up to the counter and they'd say, I'd like a drill bit, please, and a bag of cement, whatever it might be. And I said, okay. And I'm still looking for a till, a computer, anything. But no, we had triple carbonate, which anybody under 50 probably doesn't even know what that is.
They can Google it.
And you wrote on the first bit, and they had the first layer, and then the second layer went up to accounts, and you kept the bottom layer. And I said, well, how do I know what price it is? And then they put up this about 2 foot thick book with Polly Pockets, we used to call them, but with all
the clear envelope things,
full of those, and it was just lists and lists and lists.
Oh my god! I never thought that they were in like that, because it's just filthy fingers, isn't it?
It was just and apparently it was in alphabetical order, but it wasn't. It just wasn't. And then the other thing that was completely bizarre is I'd been in quite a cosmopolitan, centre of the world. So I thought at the time, London. And here I am in Peterborough. It was like an episode of Ashes to Ashes.
Film, isn't it?
Yes.
It's like a weird, the only thing missing is a builder coming in and kind of like falling in love with you and that kind of thing. It's a romantic...
It's like the traditional kind of Christmas movie where girl goes back to small town and realises that small town is the way to...
Who would play you?
Oh,
who would play you? Obviously, you could play you, but if someone else could play you...
I'd love Rachel Weisz. I mean, that would be...
Yeah.
Do you know what I liked about them, though? Why I thought, actually, this is somewhere I can stay for a while, is there was no... there was no veils. There was no inauthenticity.
From where it was the total opposite.
Total opposite.
Yeah.
People said exactly what they thought, straight to your face, whether you wanted to hear it or not, whether it was nice or not, but it was really refreshing.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about construction, actually. That's probably what's made me stay in the career, because people are direct, they're honest, they're blunt, they're to the point.
Yeah.
And weirdly, I found that just lovely. And even though sometimes it hurt my feelings, weirdly, it built my confidence, which is bizarre, isn't it?
How quickly were you able to interact with that then, and kind of...
a couple of months. Yeah. I was right in there, and I was giving it, and it sharpens your mind, because you have to be quick, because you have to give back as quickly as you're getting it.
Yeah.
And actually, because you're a woman, you have to one up it.
I was going to say, yes.
Yeah, you have to be that bit smarter, that bit funnier, that bit quicker.
Because, I mean, how many comments will you have got from guys walking in, just, don't expect to see you here. Do you know what you're doing? Do you know where to find that?
There was a lot of that, but there was also a lot of, the only people they might see in a day, if they're a lone worker, like a lot of the white band men are that come in, or they might have one apprentice with them, but a lot of them, they're on site all day and they're just with men, and then they pop into the merchant, which is their fun for the day, to go and pick up some supplies, and then there's more just men. And so to walk in and actually get to interact with a member of the opposite sex, it was like a little treat almost for them.
Yes, okay.
So actually there was this revolting coffee machine that sold 20p coffees, and they'd be like, would you like a cappuccino? I mean, it did not resemble cappuccino in any way, shape or form. They're so revolting.
There's nothing organic or natural in there, is it? It's all very synthetic.
Powder all the way. And then you kind of had the range from from those guys to then the guys that if you had to go in the supply cupboard for something, obviously they found a reason they needed to be in the supply cupboard as well. And they would get braver and braver with that, and handsier and handsier. But I think the thing with that is just, you never blink, you never show fear.
Yeah.
And although that's my experience sort of right at entry level with the big burly builder, that's also my experience now when I'm negotiating a deal on behalf of 84 other merchants that's worth millions and millions of pounds. Never show fear, never blink. I mean, that's kind of carried me through the experiences in the storeroom cupboard.
Being able to manage men, yeah.
Absolutely. Because it doesn't really matter how manicured and suited they are. Actually, some of those primal interactions, if you scrape off the politeness, is still pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
Just don't be afraid.
Yeah. Gosh, wow. Okay, so obviously, like, nailed it on the trade counter then, and then just thought, okay, I'm gonna maybe.
Well, I was still definitely leaving.
Right, okay.
100%. Like,
Definitely leaving.
I loved it.
To go
and
back
stuff.
to London, or
maybe to pick up this teacher training idea, or so. Still was thinking, actually, this is more enjoyable than I thought it would be as a for now job.
Yeah. Okay.
But there was something in me that thought, I cannot leave without computerizing this place. And God knows why I got a bee in my bonnet about that. It was probably this ridiculously huge, stupid Bible.
Yes.
And I thought, no, I have to get. And I was not a computer. I mean, I knew nothing about computers, and then they wouldn't give me a budget to have a new computer program. So I had to take what was a back office accounts program and kind of bastardize it and try and use it as a selling front office tool. And yeah, that was interesting and glitchy as hell. And I had lots of guys say, the minute you put a computer on my desk, I'm leaving.
Right.
And those guys now, by the way, 20 years on, when I go up to them and say, can you come out of the system for a minute? They're like, what do you mean come out of the system for a minute? I'm like, can you turn your computer off just for no. And I just thought, do you know what? It'll take 6 months, and I'll get this computer system up and running, and then I'll leave, because I'll really feel like I've achieved something, and that was important to me.
Yeah.
And just as it was up and running, the lady who worked in accounts went off to have a baby.
Right.
And they said, have you ever done accounts before? And I said, no, but I'm willing to learn anything.
Wow.
And
love the fact that it was a woman doing it. A woman basically controlling the money.
Of course. Sit us in the most sensible seats.
I know.
And my stepmom worked in accounts, so she said, I'll just come in and I'll show you the ropes.
Brilliant.
So she did. And I thought, well, this makes sense, because again, it was short term, it wasn't scary.
Yeah.
I was committing to
non-committal.
to 9 months of just covering this maternity leave.
Yeah.
But no, that's kind of really when the bug had maybe bitten more than I thought. I guess by then, and then I sort of made my first. The lady didn't then come back from maternity. She decided that she didn't want to go back into a full-time role. So after another kind of couple of years in that role, I then became FD, which I guess was my first big kind of step up really. And I can't really remember, probably another 3 years on from that, I realised that I wanted to expand the business. I wanted other branches. I wanted to be in control of where the business was going.
Yeah.
I didn't just want to, I felt like I was in control of where the business was because I was kind of controlling the finances, but I wasn't writing the strategy.
Yes.
And that's the more interesting part for me. So I staged a coup. I'm sure you don't call it that, but I'm calling it.
Why not? Yeah.
And there was 5 of us on the board of directors. I mean, I'm not going to lie. You know, my brother was one of them, and I was pretty sure which way he was going to vote. But I laid out my case of why I should actually be MD. And the current MD, to his credit, when we had the vote...
So he was just retiring, leaving?
No, that's what I mean, totally staged a coup. No, he was going nowhere. He was going.
I love it even more.
Nowhere.
So
I
you just went in and went, I want your job.
I said, this is my strategy. This is how I take the company forward. I can only do that if I'm in the right role. I'm not in the right role at the
Love
moment.
it. And the wrong guy is.
And the wrong guy is. And I think, I mean, I was so cheeky. I said, look, this is what I feel your strengths are, talking to the current MD.
Oh, hang on, I need to backtrack
so
a bit
cringy.
here. No, it's not cringy at all. But I need to know, what did you book a meeting? What was the meeting
No, it was
called?
the monthly board meeting.
Right, so they were just there for another reason.
Yeah.
Oh, proper cuckoo.
And I said, I have a presentation.
I love it.
And then I said, this is what I want to do. And I think I said 5 branches in 5 years, which I did not deliver on. But there was a pandemic, so in my defense.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think I said 5 branches in 5 years. And then, I said to the current MD, I said, look, do you know how I see you? Oh God, I can't believe I said that. So do you know how, I said, I think you're really strong in sales and you're really sales driven, and that's what you really need to focus on. And I see you going forward as the sales director. I think you'd be great in that role. I can imagine saying to your MD, I think you'd be great in that role.
In a demotion chat.
In a demotion role.
I just want to see all the faces. That's what I want. I want to see all the faces.
I mean, my brother, whenever I talk, has a look of slight bemusement, but more than ever in this moment was a look of, there she goes.
Yeah.
There she goes. Off she trots. And I put it to a vote. I just put it to a vote. It wasn't my place to put it to a vote, but I put it to a vote. And to his credit, even the existing MD voted for me.
Wow.
To his absolute credit.
And how long had he been the MD for?
Oh, God. Like before I'd got there. So over 10 years.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. Bless him. And I then
And they did
set
vote.
off.
They didn't just say sit down. No one told you to sit down.
No. Oh, well, I didn't offer that as a choice.
It was just it was a yes or no.
Choice. It was I am taking my moment. I am standing here. I won the vote, and and I started looking for a piece of ground in the next.
But hang on a minute.
town.
So you won the vote, and then everyone just left the room.
Yeah.
What then happened? Was there obviously I have so many questions, which
Well, no doubt the previous MD, I mean, went home and had a bit of a cry about it, you would imagine. But his remuneration package stayed the same.
yeah. Does he still work there?
No. So
Right.
he did for a long, long time afterwards. And then I suppose that was about 2013 when that happened. And when we then got to the pandemic, we closed immediately, knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah.
And then I realised that building was carrying on.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, blimey. So after about a week, we reopened, but we only reopened with an absolute skeleton staff.
Right.
And that was a really interesting moment for me. These things often force you to rethink things, don't they? Because
I think it did a lot with businesses, didn't it?
huge.
Yeah.
Because you thought, I need to bring back one driver, one member of counter staff,
Right.
one yardman. So you have that feeling of, one, who do I trust the most?
Yeah.
Who can do the most amount of work? And you realise quite, like,
who your team are?
yeah. And the funny thing is about that is that the member of counter staff I brought back, he's now branch manager. Because it was that moment that made me realise, out of all of the sales team there's no one other than him that I'd want to be in there. And I thought, well, so why on earth is he on the trade counter?
Right.
You know, and 2 years later, he sort of then moved his way up, and I sort of pushed him up all the way. And then, he's now branch manager. And so it was hugely revealing, the pandemic, weirdly, in a lot of ways. But gradually over time, okay, I'll bring back the next driver and the next yardman and the next salesperson. This kept
But again,
happening.
always had to make those decisions each time.
Each time, who's not going to rock the boat?
Yes.
Who's going to work? Because we've had all these weird and wonderful systems in place. You had to have this. You couldn't print anything, so this had to go to their phone, then they had to look at their. So nothing changed hands. No one was touching.
course.
So the computer systems were having to work harder than ever. You know, because we were still quite papered. everything's still got printed off. See, now we've never gone backwards. Nothing's printed off even now.
Wow.
So it forced us on that next level.
Yes.
So I kept having to think, who's really good on the computer? Who gets on with the existing people that are back? Who won't rock the boat? Who won't cause me any problems? Because I'm also trying to homeschool.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes.
So I need everything to be smooth.
Yeah.
I need everything to be running well. So, and it got to the point where I realised there was only one person I hadn't brought back. And it was him.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh,
Yeah.
oh, that's interesting. Oh, what does that tell me? And then I brought him back and he couldn't keep to the systems. And I re-furloughed him after a week.
Yeah.
And he took that as the final insult, being re-furloughed.
Yeah.
He then came and said, yeah, no, I want out.
Yeah.
I want to offer me a package. I want out.
I know you have a little life in you yet. I know you have a lot of strength left. I know you have a little life in you yet. I know you have.
What characteristics do you think you have? I think we've already touched on this quite a bit, haven't we? That you think make you really good at this, really good at your job.
I think I made my characteristics into our company's core values.
Brilliant.
Because I felt that they were so intrinsic to, one, it being a nice place to work, but also to our success. And one of them we've touched on is change, is evolution, there's a poster on the wall at work that says, I never want to hear anyone say we've always done it that way. I can't, it makes my neck tick.
Yeah.
So keep learning, keep changing, keep evolving. I mean, be a sponge, not a brick.
Yeah.
Even though we sell bricks. I think that's really, really important. Every day's a school day. I love that. I love that saying. And then diversity, and I don't mean that as in ticking a box because we've got someone of this religion or culture or woman or man. I mean diversity of thought.
Yeah.
So my board of directors now, I strongly, nearly always disagree with at least two people on there.
Right.
To the point where I huff out of a board meeting.
Yeah.
And then I think about it. And then I think, actually, there's a point to that.
Yeah.
So it's running it as a democracy and not an autocracy. So it's definitely believing in that, in diversity of thought. I read a book in the pandemic. It was brilliant, Black Box Thinking. And then I went on to read Rebel Ideas, both by, he was a table tennis champion whose name I now can't remember.
Oh my God, Weston, I love that.
But they were literally game changing. You know, he says at the beginning of one of the books that the reason 9/11 happened was because the CIA were all white Christian men. And they didn't take, and I quote, a man in pajamas who lives in a cave seriously.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas had they had just one Muslim member or one person who understood that culture who would turn around and say, actually, prophets live in caves. Actually, prophets dress like this. Actually, everybody's listening to him.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, actually, he is gathering a following. And it's, I don't work in counterterrorism, but I do recognise that if you don't have diversity of thought on a board, you're dead in the water. And then communication, as you've probably noticed, I really love to talk a lot. But because of that, I talk to people all the time about, and it's that humility to talk, to realise where you're getting it wrong, to understand what you could be doing better, to listen to everyone, because I go around next Thursday, this Thursday, I'll go around with my Santa hat on because I am tragic, delivering boxes of cheer, I call them. But they're just little boxes with silly Christmas treats in, some wine, some nibbles, shortbread biscuits, matchsticks, things that you have to have in your home at Christmas. And I go around and deliver them, and I'll chat to each member of staff as I go around. It started off as a quaint and lovely idea 10 years ago. Now I'm like, I've got to get to Kingsley Corby, Huntingdon, 2 branches in Peterborough, and there's loads of people, and now it's turned more into a marathon and less of a fun day out.
They're expecting it now as well, aren't they?
Definitely. So being open-minded, chatting loads, and being really, really open-minded.
Well, you've had to be open-minded, haven't you, to have even considered the job that you ended up in.
100%.
Stick at it.
Yeah.
And grow and develop it. You've had to have been very open-minded.
And I'm plain talking as well, and I think that's what I love about this industry, certainly in comparison to acting, is that people tend to speak their mind, and I don't like decoding messages. I want to know if someone likes something, tell me.
And it's also it's probably not devious, is it? Do you know what I mean? There's probably not a hidden agenda. It's like, no, I don't like that. I'm telling you, I don't like it. Okay, so what parts of your characteristics are a bit more challenging then? Do you find you struggle with, or other people struggle with, or?
Yeah, I mean, the same thing could be said of the things that other people struggle with. I don't hold back. I do say what I think. And whilst being honest and upfront and straight talking is great, there is a time and a place, and sometimes I don't pick the time or the place.
Right.
You know, so that can be problematic. And the other thing is, and I used to apologise for this a lot, probably gaslit by a succession of awful men, but I am very emotive. If I am upset, you will know.
You can tell it, yeah.
Now, in a personal situation, that's fine and that's healthy. But in a work situation, I get shouty, sometimes get a bit cryy. I mean, you know, I might sometimes lose the odd bit of dignity if I feel really passionately about something. And there are loads, and I have learnt that you catch a lot more flies with honey than vinegar. And so I have learnt sometimes when all the emotions are bubbling, and when I keep an emotion in, my throat gets tight.
Oh, okay.
Because I physically embody my emotions to such a degree. Too much probably Stanislavski and acting technique, probably, that you must embody it.
Brilliant.
And I feel it creeping up my throat. And whereas before I would have to then release it because it was right under my chin, I'd have to let it out. Now the brain does kick in and say, if you want to do it, do it. But the outcome will not be the one you want. So do it. If you want to do it, girl, go for it. But it won't get you your desired outcome.
Okay.
And in that situation, I'll often say, I'm going to make a cup of tea.
Right.
Or I'm going to go to the loo. And I'll go and make a cup of tea. I will just cut. And sometimes if I really am going with you catch more flies with honey, I'll make the whole room, including whatever arsehole is pissing me off, a cup of tea.
Right.
And then I'll come back in the room. I'll give everyone their tea. I always keep a stash of biscuits if it's in my office.
Yeah.
Get the biscuits out. And then I say, look, the way that we need to go at this is, and more often than not, that gets the desired outcome. But the trouble is, and I guess my toxic trait is that my brain can holler all it likes.
Yeah.
Time to go make a cup of tea. But if I want to really say it, my God, I'm saying it.
Yeah.
And and then I end up not with the desired outcome.
So what's next for you in your career then? Now that you're MD, I feel like another meeting might happen, and what would that be?
Gosh, can you imagine if someone else staged a coup? I'd be outraged.
Who could do it?
No. Do you know my brother said to me, because he's my older brother, so it does kind of feel weird sometimes, but he said, you won't ever ask me to go out and do what you do, will you? Don't ever ask me to go and meet all them people and do all those.
So
you keep
perfect,
doing it. So it's great. It's great. No, we work together brilliantly. I think for me now, the juggling act, which has been, you know, being a predominantly a single mum, sort of from Dexter being 7 to now being almost 12. I think that gets easier in some ways going forward. So I feel like I'm entering a phase of my life, which is I will be mourning the loss of a little boy, welcoming in a teenager. And I think that I will cope with that in a totally psychologically unsound manner of just working harder and doing more and focusing on my
you're
other
less
baby.
needed at home, aren't you?
I am less needed, and I've always said that I have two babies. You know, the business is one, and Dexter is the other. And Dexter's not a baby anymore.
No.
And he will still need me, but in very, very different ways. And I don't want to get bigger necessarily. For a long time, I thought that was the play.
Right.
Bigger, more branches, more businesses. Let's spin as many plates as we can at the same time. And that's what makes me successful. I think my definition of success has changed completely.
Wow, interesting.
I don't want to be the biggest. I don't want to open more branches.
Okay.
What I actually see now is a period of consolidation, of building a really strong team. The team is super strong in places, and then there's little gaps here and there, and of actually creating a business that allows me to sit outside of it.
Yeah, I was wondering, yeah.
That's what I want to do now, so that I can...
You can address your own work-life balance.
Yes. And so that I can... I think only when you step back... I remember doing theatre studies at university, and they said that the whole of plays and theatre changed the moment the Eiffel Tower was built, the turn of the century, because all of these playwrights who had been writing these sort of very intimate family dynamic plays suddenly went up the top of the Eiffel Tower, and it was the first time that a lot of normal people had actually seen the world from above.
Right.
And it was this absolute catalyst of change that when you get distance and perspective, actually the way that you think about the world and things is changed forever. And plays just went... It was one of the most creative periods in playwriting.
Wow.
And I think that about parenting and about business, sometimes you need to get a bit further away so that you can look in and think, okay, that's what we need to do, or that's how we need to move forward. Or if you're in the trenches every day, you're never going to win the war.
No.
You know, I do think you just have to pull back. And that's what I'd like to do. And I always want to keep rewriting the rules. So kind of rewrite the rules of what a work day should look like, what the job of an MD is, even, you know, how I steer the whole ship forward. But ultimately, I want to make sure that a business that's been around, there's different parts of the business. Some were only started in the 80s, but some were started in the 1880s, you know. So to make sure that this kind of...
This legacy
is carried forward.
Yeah.
I mean, so I love... there's a guy who lives in the village that has a business that he's literally just given to the employees, which I don't think Dexter would ever forgive me, but it is a great idea.
Yes,
it is that sort of thing, building it, uniting it, and then taking forward something that in some way you then give back.
You give back. So what next is actually kind of regrouping.
Yeah, definitely. And I definitely think because 2024 is going to be one of those weird hold your breath years.
Okay.
It's like, let's actually have a little look at what we're already doing well, what we're doing badly, but very much consolidating, very much saying this is where we are and this is who we are, and let's build on this. Let's stop kind of chasing the end of the rainbow. Let's stop running away into the distance. Actually, let's look at what's here and what we perhaps need to fix about what's here, and also what we can do to make not just my work-life balance better, but it's a tough industry. You know, we start at 7 o'clock in the morning and finish at 5. It's 7 to 5 and it's Saturday mornings.
Yeah.
And when I spoke to a lot of other merchants, we all got together last week in Stamford. I organised it, hence why it was in Stamford.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not driving. They all said, oh, they now open between Christmas and New Year. And I thought, oh, really? And I just thought of the looks on my staff's faces as I said to them, yeah, do you know what? I think now we're going to open between
Christmas and
New Year. it is a really tough industry. So I think it is looking at ways where you can create that work-life balance for everyone. We've got a really bad track record of women coming back from maternity, because you try coming back to 7 to 5. I mean, that's tough hours. And we've got a lady coming back this year, and it's looking with her at, okay, so how can we make this work? What can we do to make this work? Because you're not going to attract new talent into an industry where, like you have said, that I think that next generation has such a wide choice of what they want to do.
Yeah.
You know, what's going to attract people into our industry when we say, well, it's 7 to 5, you can't work from home, it's office based because you're selling to the general public and to builders, and it's, you know, Saturday mornings, it's not great pay, to begin with anyway. I mean,
you're not selling it.
You're
right now.
not selling it. And
Yeah.
I think it's looking at ways where, let's not keep getting bigger. Let's not keep making life harder for everyone. Let's actually look at ways where we can turn a sensible profit, but people are excited about going to work.
Well, you're making life better, not necessarily bigger, but you're making it better, aren't you?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So I think that's what's next.
Sounds like a great year.
It's a good job that I don't have to float on the stock exchange, though, because words like that would not help, would it?
No. Well, I don't know. If Elon Musk, I mean, let's face it, you can tell
he's bouncing off the walls.
Disney
Anything
to go,
would sell.
F himself.
Yeah.
Okay. My two final questions are always: what life advice would you give your younger self? Could be school, uni, drama school. Any life advice you would give your younger self?
I would say that the loudest voice should be the one inside. Because
so you're talking intuition and gut feel,
the kind of little girl that you carry around inside you, who's not been hurt or battered about by life, who knows her own mind. That voice, it's taken me till now to actually tune back in and start listening to that more. And the minute I get butterflies in my tummy, listen to them. The minute that, you know, that moment just before some really awful things have happened in my life, the hairs on the back of my neck have stood up, and yet I've carried on out of politeness and people pleasing. Oh, people pleasing. Oh, don't ever, 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 ever be a people pleaser. I mean, don't do it. Don't do it, because you get yourself in situations. So common. So common. But the most danger as a woman you will ever find yourselves in is when you think, oh, well, I'll stay to be polite, or, oh, I'll do that because he might be upset if I don't. You know, run for the hills. But in work as well as in personal life, if your tummy gives you butterflies, if you're excited about something, listen with that. Keep doing what you're doing. If the hairs on the back of your neck stand up or you get goosebumps, listen to those. Listen to your own voice. If the loudest voice inside your head is your dad's or your husband's or your boss's, that you're going wrong. Your voice should be your loudest voice. Always.
That is amazing advice. Amazing. The final question then, which can be exactly the same, is there any other life advice that you would, rather than your younger self, that you would throw out into the world for everyone?
I don't think we can help the wounds we sustain as we go through life. I think they're inevitable from our parents, from teachers, from our upbringing, whatever it may be. But I think it is your responsibility to heal those wounds through whatever means necessary. And it doesn't have to be traditional therapy, although I would strongly recommend therapy to anyone, because if you don't heal those, the pain you then inflict on other people, whether that be your children, your employees, whoever it may be, that's then your fault. It's not the fault of, you know, whoever inflicted that harm on you. It's your fault. So I'm very aware that whenever I act out of character, whenever I'm unreasonable, whenever I'm short-tempered, whenever I make snap decisions, wrong decisions, it's nearly always as a result of unhealed trauma. And I have to take responsibility for that, nobody else. And I think it's our responsibility not to pass that on to the next generation.
Or to other people.
So yeah, heal your own wounds is definitely the advice that I'd give to people.
Again, brilliant advice. And with that note, thank you very much, Natasha.
Thank you.
If you would like to hear more about this chat, see some behind the scenes pics and some personal profile pics, plus read about how to get started in this industry and or this role, then please go and support us on Patreon. The link is on this podcast page and across all of our socials. Sincere thanks in advance.